around. I was 25 years old, standing in the dim glow of a single bulb in a kitchen that smelled like yesterday's regrets. The table in front of me wasn't set for dinner, it was buried under an avalanche of unpaid bills. My weekly paycheck, $57. Let that sink in. $57 to feed a growing family, keep the lights on, and somehow convince my wife that the promises I'd whispered on our wedding day weren't just hot air. I stared at that check like it was a foreign language. 6 years of grinding, hustling, showing up early, staying late, and this was the prize. I felt the weight of it in my chest, heavier than any load I'd ever carried, because deep down I knew the truth. I wasn't just broke, I was settling. And settling, my friend, is the slow death of every dream you ever had. Let me take you back to the beginning, not to bore you with childhood stories, but to show you the exact moment the seed was planted. I grew up in a small farming town in Idaho, the kind where the Snake River whispers secrets to the willows at dusk, and the air carries the scent of fresh, turned earth after a spring rain. Life was simple, honest, and wrapped in the kind of love that doesn't need a price tag. My father woke before dawn to tend the fields, his hands cracked from years of honest labor, teaching me that hard work was the backbone of everything worthwhile. My mother, with her quiet strength, turned meager harvest into feasts that filled our home with laughter and warmth. When I left home at 18, I carried a fire in my belly and a picture in my mind. A big house with a wraparound porch, a shiny car in the driveway, a life so abundant it would make my parents proud and erase any doubts about the path I'd chosen. The American dream. I wasn't just chasing it, I was sprinting toward it, convinced that sheer willpower would carry me across the finish line. High school ended with a diploma clutched in my fist and a head full of untamed ambition. College started the fall after, but 1 year in, I looked around at the lecture halls filled with sleepy-eyed students scribbling notes on subjects that felt worlds away from real life and thought, I'm smarter than this. I don't need more classrooms, I need paychecks, real ones that put food on the table and build something tangible. So I quit. Bold move, right? Except boldness without direction is just noise echoing in an empty room. I landed a job the next week at a local warehouse, loading trucks from dawn till dusk. Easy. Getting a job is always easy when you're young and hungry. Building a life, that's where the plot thickens, where the fairy tales crumble and reality bites down hard. Marriage came quick, like a summer storm that rolls in without warning. Love does that, blindsides you with joy and then hands you a stack of responsibilities taller than your courage. I stood in our tiny apartment. A one-bedroom walk-up with peeling wallpaper and a leaky faucet that dripped like a metronome counting down our worries, looked her in the eyes and promised her the moon. Just wait, I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my throat. It's right around the corner. We'll have that house, the cars, the vacations, all of it. I believed it with every fiber of my being. I worked for it. Dawn to dark, sweat on my brow, caluses on my hands thickening like armor. If effort was currency, I should have been a millionaire, stacking bills higher than the Silas back home. But effort without strategy, that's just motion disguised as progress. A hamster wheel spinning faster and faster while the scenery never changes. I climbed the ladder at the warehouse from loader to shift supervisor, then to assistant manager, each promotion a small victory that tasted like ash because the paycheck barely stretched further. Groceries came from the discount aisle. Date nights were walks in the park with sandwiches wrapped in foil, and every unexpected expense felt like a punch to the gut. The car broke down once, a 300 repair that wiped out 2 weeks worth of savings. I remember sitting in the mechanic's waiting room, staring at the cracked linoleum floor, wondering how many more hits I could take before something inside me shattered. By 25, the corner I kept promising never showed up. Instead, I got a front row seat to my own mediocrity. The bills grew teeth, gnawing at the edges of our peace. The dream shrank to fit the confines of our cramped reality. And one day, I'll never forget it, a crisp autumn afternoon with leaves crunching underfoot as I walked home from the bus stop, I lost $10. It slipped from my pocket during a crowded commute, gone before I even noticed. You'd think I'd misplaced a limb. I was sick for 2 weeks. Physically ill, stomach churning, sleep evading me as I replayed the moment over and over. My friend tried to cheer me up over cheap beer at a dive bar. Maybe someone who needed it found it, man. Karma or whatever. I wanted to punch him. I was the one who needed it. Charity. That was a luxury for people who weren't drowning in their own inadequacies. People who could afford to be generous without fearing the abyss. That's when the mirror cracked. I saw myself clearly for the first time, a man with big talk and small results. A husband who promised stars but delivered dust. And in that moment of brutal honesty, standing in the bathroom with steam from the shower fogging the glass, a question burned through the fog like a branding iron. Is this it? Is this the summit of all my grand plans, a life of scraping by, of quiet desperation masked as perseverance? I refuse to believe it. Not here. Not in the land of opportunity, where stories of rags to riches echoed like legends. Not me, the kid who'd outrun tractors in the fields and dreamed bigger than the horizon. I considered going back to school. 1 year of college looks pathetic on a resume. A half-finished promise that screams quitter, but with a family to feed, our first child on the way, it felt impossible. Nights blurred into days of exhaustion, and the thought of tuition fees loomed like an unclimbable mountain. Start a business. Electric idea. The kind that sparks in the dead of night and keeps you awake with possibilities until I check my bank account. Zero zilch. Starting capital was a fairy tale I couldn't afford. A dragon-guarded treasure I had no sword to claim. I was stuck, trapped between ambition and reality, with no map and no mentor, no guiding light in the storm. Friends offered advice, just work harder, they'd say, as if I hadn't already bled for every inch. Family meant well, sending care packages from the farm. But their world was acres of dirt and predictable seasons. Mine was concrete jungles and unpredictable paychecks. I prayed sometimes in the quiet hours before dawn, begging for a sign, a break, anything to shatter the cycle. Then, like a thunderclap in a silent night, everything changed. It wasn't gradual, it was a pivot point. A single thread pulled that unraveled the tapestry of failure and wove something new. It was a sales conference in a stuffy hotel ballroom in downtown Boise. The kind of event I crashed because a coworker had an extra ticket, and the coffee was free, black, strong, and endless, a small mercy in my caffeine-fueled existence. I wasn't there to learn. I was there to escape the house for a day, to pretend I was networking while my mind raced with worries about the electric bill due Friday. The room was packed with suits and ties, eager faces jotting notes, the air thick with cologne and ambition. I slouched in the back row, nursing my styrofoam cup, half listening to speakers drone on about quotas and closing techniques. But on that stage stood a man who owned the room without raising his voice. He was a silver-haired titan in his late 50s, with a presence that commanded attention like gravity. He didn't shout. He didn't strut or pace with theatrical flair. He simply spoke, and the air crackled with possibility, every word landing like a seed in fertile soil. His suit was sharp, tailored to perfection, but his words were sharper, cutting through the noise with precision. He talked about wealth like it was a science, not a stroke of luck formulas and levers anyone could pull, if they understood the mechanics. Happiness like it was a skill to be honed, not a fleeting emotion. And purpose like it was a choice, deliberate and daily, not some cosmic gift bestowed on the worthy. I sat there, mesmerized, my coffee growing cold in my hand. For the first time, I saw what was possible when someone knew the game instead of just playing it blindly, bumping into walls like I had for years. He didn't peddle get-rich quick schemes. He dissected mindset, habits, and systems with the calm authority of a surgeon. Most people, he said, pausing to let the words hang, trade their time for money and call it a living. But the elite trade value for freedom. The room nodded in unison. But for me, it was a revelation, a crack in the dam holding back years of frustration. When the seminar ended, something possessed me, call it desperation, divine intervention, or sheer audacity. I fought through the crowd, heart pounding like a drum in my chest, palms sweaty as I gripped my crumpled notebook. People swarmed him for autographs and business cards, but I pushed forward, introduced myself with a voice that cracked like a teenager's. Sir, what you said about value, I need that. I'm drowning and I don't know how to swim. I probably sounded like a fool, rambling about my $57 paycheck and the baby on the way. But he looked at me, really looked, his eyes piercing through the veneer to the raw potential beneath, and saw something I didn't even see in myself. A spark, perhaps, or just a man tired of losing. He handed me his card. Call my office Monday, he said simply. No pity, no promises, just an invitation. A few months later, after a series of interviews where I poured out my soul and demonstrated a work ethic forged in fire, he hired me. Not as a pity case, but as an investment. I started at the bottom of his company, a mid-sized firm dealing in real estate development and investments, running errands, fetching coffee, absorbing everything like a sponge in an ocean. For the next 5 years, he became my university, not with textbooks or lectures in sterile halls, but with conversations over strong coffee in his corner office overlooking the city skyline, scribbled notes on napkins during power lunches, night walks through quiet streets where he'd stop under a street lamp, the glow casting shadows on his face, and say, listen close, this one idea will change everything if you let it. He taught me that wealth isn't about money, it's about value. Creating so much for others that abundance flows back tenfold, that happiness isn't a destination, it's a discipline. A series of choices to focus on gratitude amid the grind, that success isn't luck, it's a series of refined decisions. compounded daily like interest in a savvy account. He gave me 7 strategies, not theories pulled from thin air, not motivational fluff designed to inspire without instructing. Strategies. Tools so sharp they cut through excuses like butter through a hot knife. I used them relentlessly. The first, leverage your network like oxygen. Every person is a door to opportunity. Nurture relationships before you need them. The second, master the art of calculated risk. A fear is a liar. Assess, act, adjust, and so on, each one building on the last, turning chaos into a blueprint. Under his wing, I rose quickly. From errand boy to junior associate, then to project manager overseeing multi-million-dollar deals. The money started flowing not in trickles, but in streams that washed away the old fears. We bought our first real house, a modest 3-bedroom with a yard where our son took his first steps. Vacations became reality, not distant dreams. But more than the material, it was the shift inside confidence that didn't waver, wisdom that guided every choice. Then, at 49, without warning, a heart attack in his sleep. Peaceful, they said he was gone. I mourned hard. The funeral was a blur of black suits and heartfelt eulogies. But grief has a way of clarifying what matters, stripping away the superficial to reveal the core. I looked back and realized the job was nice, a stepping stone. The promotion to executive vice president, impressive on paper, but the real inheritance wasn't a title or a paycheck, it was wisdom. A philosophy so potent it turned a broke farm boy into a force, a man who built not just wealth but legacy. I took those ideas and built empires. Not just financial, though the money came in waves I couldn't have imagined, investments compounding, businesses scaling to heights that dwarfed my childhood visions. But empires of influence, of impact. I shared the strategies with my teams during Monday morning huddles, watched light bulbs ignite in their eyes as concepts clicked into place, and saw results explode overnight. Grown men cried in private meetings, admitting years wasted on wrong paths. Skeptics became believers, their sales numbers soaring. Average became extraordinary, lives transformed one decision at a time. And somewhere along the way, amid boardroom battles and family milestones, our son graduating high school, a daughter born into abundance, I felt a pull, not to hoard the knowledge like a dragon on gold, but to spread it, to pay forward the gift that saved me. I wasn't a writer by trade. I wasn't a public speaker, comfortable in spotlights. I was a businessman, hands-on and results-driven. But the message wouldn't let me go. It demanded to be freed, to reach others staring at their own $57 checks. So here we are. I've poured this story into words, into this narrative you're absorbing right now, because one man's thunderclap became my lifeline, and it can be yours. As you turn these pages or press play on this message, imagine you're shopping in the marketplace of ideas, a bustling bazaar where gems hide among the ordinary. Don't swallow everything whole without question. Pick what resonates with your soul. Test it in the fires of your daily life. Tweak it to fit your unique circumstances. Make it yours, owned and operated by you. But whatever you do, don't just follow blindly. Study like a scholar. Dissect like a mechanic tearing down an engine. Apply with the ferocity of a warrior in battle. Because here's the secret no one tells you in the self-help aisles or late-night infomercials. The day your life turns around isn't marked on a calendar with fanfare and confetti. It's ignited by a decision, quiet but explosive, to reject the status quo, that decision. To stop accepting average as your lot. To stop blaming circumstance, economy, luck, or lack thereof. To start designing your future with the precision of an architect drafting blueprints and the passion of an artist splashing color on canvas. It's choosing to seek out your mentor, to crash that conference, to ask the question that scares you. My friend, that day is today. Right now, as these words sink in, let's walk through the fire together, hand in virtual hand. On the other side, a life so rich in meaning, so vibrant with possibility, so undeniably yours, you'll wonder how you ever settled for less. How the view from the mountaintop makes the valley seem like a distant memory. The strategies await in the chapters ahead. But remember, knowledge without action is just entertainment. Decide now. Your future self, wealthy, wise, unbreakable, is cheering you on from the finish line.